At the same time as the United States Securities and Exchange Commission is experiencing yet another setback in the courts, attorneys are expressing their opinions on Gary Gensler's efforts in the XRP litigation and condemning his activities. For the purpose of providing further explanation, a court has decided to reject the effort made by the Securities and Exchange Commission to regulate cybersecurity issues for businesses. Following the conclusion of an investigation, the court reached the conclusion that the Securities and Exchange Commission's attempt to regulate cybersecurity for corporations was unsuccessful. Additionally, the court reached this conclusion. There are a number of people who are well-versed in the Bitcoin market who are paying attention to the fact that the Securities and Exchange Commission of the United States is currently dealing with yet another legal defeat. This is a spot where one can consult for everything and everything that is associated with XRP. Before we get started, we would be quite appreciative if you could give it a significant thumbs up, click the button to subscribe, activate notifications, and become a member of our community. Please accept my gratitude in advance for your support. This time around, a court denied their effort to impose control over the cybersecurity of businesses, which was a judgment that was praised by a great number of persons who were opposed to the thought for the reason that it was intended to be applied. On cable television, James Murphy, who is recognized for being one of the most vocal opponents, is also known by the moniker Metal Lawman. He is noted for his intensely vocal opposition. His participation in the legal community during the campaign has earned him a reputation for being active. It is safe to say that he is one of the most intense opponents. During the time when Gary Gensler was serving as chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, he was the target of a significant amount of criticism from members of the general public. It was expressly directed toward him that these criticisms were made. In addition, the fact that this took place in the midst of the ongoing lawsuit against XRP, which continues to shine a significant spotlight on the actions taken by the SEC, is another factor that is crucial. Taking into consideration the fact that this is happening is a very interesting thing to do. The Securities and Exchange Commission of the United States of America is currently confronted with yet another legal obstacle. In the present moment, they are confronted with this particular circumstance. The cryptocurrency community is providing a response to the ongoing lawsuit that is being brought against XRP. This response is offered in light of the conditions that have been outlined above. This comment is being provided from the perspective of the community members who are involved in Bitcoin. It was recently revealed by the United States Securities and Exchange Commission seat that it had been unsuccessful in its action against SolarWinds, which resulted in a significant loss for the SEC. The purpose of this material is to provide a point of reference for the efforts that were recommended by the Securities and Exchange Commission to monitor the cybersecurity measures that companies have implemented. However, these attempts were rejected by a federal court. One of the actions that was suggested would have been to take this course of action. The reality is that this choice will have a huge influence on the future, which means that it will have significant implications. Because of this, it will have a significant impact on the situation. The Securities and Exchange Commission has maintained that it should be responsible for reviewing all of the internal controls that are in place within public firms. This is in reference to the cybersecurity measures that have been implemented. Among the duties associated with this position is the task of monitoring the implementation of cybersecurity precautions. You will be accountable for all of the controls that are currently in place and will be responsible for monitoring them, mainly due to the fact that the Securities and Exchange Commission is the organization that is accountable for monitoring cybersecurity. The situation that has developed is as described above. In light of the fact that Angel Mayer, who presided over the proceedings that took place in the United States District Court, did not agree with this line of reasoning, she decided to reject it. During the course of his argument, he stated that it would provide the Securities and Exchange Commission with an unreasonably large degree of jurisdiction to regulate. Furthermore, he emphasized that this would be an unneeded consequence that would be implemented. This verdict, which was handed down by Judge Angel Mayer at this time, brought to light the excessive amount of reasoning that was carried out by the Securities and Exchange Commission. This was brought to light as a result of the verdict. The aforementioned discovery was made during this time period. In the event that the argument that was presented by the Securities and Exchange Commission were to be accepted, he was of the opinion that the SEC would be granted the authority to exercise control over particular matters. When he made this statement, he was referring to the fact that the SEC had presented arguments. The ability to conduct background checks, the utilization of padlocks for storage, the implementation of safety requirements at water parks, and the establishment of passwords are all covered in this. The court's decision emphasized that the Securities and Exchange Commission should continue to limit its jurisdiction to financial controls and should not broaden its ability to cover other internal measures. This was emphasized in the judgment that was reached by the court. In light of the decision that was made by the court, this was the consequence that follows. The continuation of the execution of this limitation is of the utmost importance and should be followed through with. The ruling was handed down, and almost immediately after that, it placed a significant number of businesses at ease. Regulators may be affected by the consequences that hackers may cause. These businesses were concerned about the likelihood that something like this could take place. All of these individuals and businesses were suffering a significant lot of anxiety as a result of the potential ramifications that hackers could potentially have. The cyber attack that was. Carried out against SolarWinds in the year 2020 was the incident that caused the filing of the lawsuit against the firm. The Russian hackers were able to get access to important technical companies as well as government organizations during this attack. They did this by exploiting weaknesses in the software of the company, which allowed them to acquire access to the corporations. The allegations that SolarWinds had exaggerated the severity of the breach while the inquiry was being carried out were unsuccessful as well. The court dismissed the allegations. SolarWinds was the company that was accused of making the charges. The Securities and Exchange Commission, also known as SEC, is the organization that initiated the legal action of bringing the allegations forward. The following are some extra particulars that must be taken into consideration. The most recent challenge that the Securities and Exchange Commission has been dealing with has been brought to the attention of a sizable majority of the Ripple community. This is something that should be kept in mind, especially in light of the issue that has been occurring with XRP, which continues to have an ongoing impact on the community. One of the most well-known attorneys in the world, James Murphy, who is also a critic of the Securities and Exchange Commission, recently gave an interview in which he highlighted his concerns over X. Murphy has expressed his concern about the current scenario, as he stated in his words, as a result of the repeated losses that the Securities and Exchange Commission has sustained. This is one of the problems that Murphy has expressed concern about. Murphy stated that the Securities and Exchange Commission ought to be compelled to reevaluate the financing available for the efforts that have been launched by Gary Gensler, the chair of the SEC, against American companies. These efforts have been focused on corporations located in the United States of America. Gensler has been a proponent of the Securities and Exchange Commission taking action against firms, particularly those based in the United States. Murphy's criticism is currently resonating with a sizable number of members of the XRP community. These individuals have been opposed to the approach that the SEC chooses to regulate for a substantial amount of time. This is something that these guys have been doing for a considerable amount of time. For a lengthy amount of time up to this moment, these individuals have been aware of the criticism that Murphy has provided. Since these individuals initially began asking these questions, a significant period of time has elapsed. After all, they have been asking them for quite some time. One thing that is particularly remarkable is the fact that the case that is associated with XRP has been the topic of discussion in recent times. As one of the components that contribute to the scenario's very interesting nature, this is one of the factors that make it such. There have been a great number of generalizations made regarding the outcome of the lawsuit and the likelihood of a settlement being reached in the near future. A more in-depth discussion of these generalizations is going to follow below. In spite of the fact that the vast majority of people believe that a settlement is extremely unlikely to take place, there are a significant number of people who believe that a resolution will be reached in the not-too-distant future.